Jimmy, I love you, man. I love your films. But even the ones I love, I can sometimes cringe a little bit. Edward Furlong and Terminator 2, I love Terminator 2. But man, sometimes that kid would talk and I was like, oh, stop, make it stop. James Cameron is talking about Marvel and DC. Not just Marvel and DC, but he does specifically call them out. What could James Cameron, what could Jimmy Boy possibly be talking about with James Cameron, or with Marvel and DC? And I'm really interested to get your take on this, because I think our take will be similar, but I think maybe yours might be a little bit stronger. What did James Cameron say? Well, in an interview, he was just talking, because, you know, he's doing interviews for Avatar 2 coming up in December and everything. And he said, when I look at these big spectacular films, I'm looking at you, Marvel and DC, so he called them out directly. It doesn't matter how old the characters are. They all act like they're in college. They have relationships, but they really don't. They never hang up their spurs because of their kids. The things that really ground us and give us power, love, and a purpose. Those characters don't experience it. And I think that's not the way to make movies. He also went on to talk about Avatar 2 specifically and this subject. He said, in the first movie, Sam's character leaps off his flying creature and essentially changes the course of history as a result of this crazy, almost suicidal leap of faith. He's talking about in the end of the movie where he jumps off on top of the dragon, the big helicopter jet thing. And Zoe's character leaps off a limb and assumes there's going to be some nice big leaves down there that can cushion her fall. But when you're a parent, you don't think that way. So for me, as a parent of 5 kids, I'm saying, what happens when those characters mature and realize that they have a responsibility outside of their own survival? Now, what I thought, people have been talking about these comments, and I agree with what he's saying as far as, like, how... Yes, I wish characters typically don't in movies really grow beyond that. It's just they're heroic and stoic, regardless if they got kids or not. They really don't grow past that. And then they have kids and they just have something else to be heroic and stoic about. I do agree with him though, like once you become a parent, you do kind of think about that stuff a little bit different. I mean, I used to drive like a fucking maniac, okay? I'm not a maniac, I was just more, I used to do a lot of fast driving and creative driving on the street, let's say that. And I would do things that I would never do nowadays. Not just because I think maybe I think about mortality a bit more, but also because I do. I'm not the only person that I'm worried about anymore. There's other people that depend on me, and I think that that's like somewhere in the back of the head. So I do like the idea that he's saying, hey, maybe we should take these larger-than-life characters and give them a little bit more believability and like ground them a little bit by saying, hey, when you got kids, which I know is a big thing in his new film, that you're not maybe gonna, like he said, you're not just gonna willy-nilly, as you will, jump off of a fucking flying creature and just, hey, maybe hopefully I make it, because you got other people depending on you. Now, that I do agree with. However, and I really hate that he's somewhat making me defend Marvel. I'm not going to go out on a limb and just say that Marvel has not done that at all. They kind of have, like Iron Man with his kid. He had a kid in, what was it, Endgame? Was it? Yeah. He had a kid in Endgame, and, you know, he made some decisions not to get back into that game. I mean, he eventually did, of course, but he tried to make decisions not to do that. You've got Ant-Man. He's got a kid who... he says everything is for her, and then of course Hawkeye, a lot of his stuff is for his family. Now on the flip side of that, I will say these characters are still doing, you know, the same crazy ass shit they did from before their parents, so I guess there's that whole thing. But I don't know, what do you think of these comments? Do you think there's any validity to them? And also, if his movie comes out and it's, because he's pretty much saying their stories are kind of vapid and two-dimensional, and while his stories are interesting, some of his characterizations at times, I can say, don't always age well. Some of them do.
Yeah.
But if his characters... Now, he has help writing this next one, but if his characters in this new one are pretty two-dimensional and vapid, or empty, I'm wondering, how do you think these comments will age? So just all of that. What's your thoughts?
They'll age like a lead hammer. Like James Cameron says shit all the time. And whether you agree with it or not, he's gonna be like Martin Scorsese. He's gonna say something, you know, that might piss you off, might not piss you off.
Oh yeah, like his comments about that their Marvel movies aren't cinema.
Yeah. It's like whatever, man. James Cameron, he makes a lot of money. He's gonna say what he's gonna say. If he says like they're in college, they act like they're in college. I mean, yeah, it's like a bunch of toys fighting each other. What what do you expect? It's like when you're young and a kid and you have like shit just banging up against each other, and they have relationships, and I don't know. James Cameron talks out of his ass. I can't take him seriously sometimes, but he does what James Cameron does. He makes the studio a lot of money, and yeah, there you go.
I mean, he's kind of earned the right to do that. I'll say to a degree,
Yeah.
at least he can do that. I mean, he has some of the highest, well, at least most profitable films ever made, and he's a story
Yeah.
filmmaker, so he might have a little bit of a kind of like Martin Scorsese. I mean, Martin Scorsese, he's earned, he can say what the fuck he wants. I don't have to agree with it. We don't have to agree with it, but I think he can at least say what the fuck he wants. I'm with you on that. I think the thing that really makes me go a little bit on this is that, man, if you're saying this and your movie that is about to come out pretty much does the same thing, that's gonna age like, what do they say, like spoiled milk or age like milk, whatever.
balloon.
It's not gonna come off very well if you're saying
Yeah.
this. Now, if he's saying this in like his movie, because I do think it would be interesting to kind of like, because we don't have many superhero movies or like these larger than life big blockbuster hero movies that really do kind of look at how does your life change besides, hey, there's a little person there and now I have to defend them. Besides that, in these, because that's usually what it is in these movies, they have a child or a child figure, and they just kind of, now there's just someone they have to protect. Nothing
Yeah.
really changes for them. I mean, if he shows in this new movie that, hey, there's like this paradigm shift to this change for his characters because they're now parents, I mean, that could be interesting. We haven't ever really seen that, so I mean, that could be cool. But if not, these comments are going to come back and bite him in the ass.
As they always do. I mean, it's like Denis Villeneuve talking about talking about the discourse and taking part in it and saying that films are nothing more than cut and paste of others. I'm like, I can understand that because at least Denis Villeneuve makes good movies.
Yeah, I mean, he makes
funny.
wonderful films so far. He hasn't had really a bomb, well, like a dud, I'll say. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Full food for thought. There's not really a lot here. It's just him talking, and we're gonna get a lot more of James Cameron talking. I will say he doesn't typically call out. Well, I haven't seen him in the past like call out specific. He will talk about the industry and he will talk about movies in like vague terms, but he rarely talks about like specific filmmakers or movies. So the fact that he flat out said, "I'm looking at you, Marvel and DC." I mean, I guess one could almost say that Marvel is its own genre almost, but
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of like, a little uncharacteristic for him to just call them out. Not uncharacteristic for him to call the industry out and call just movies as a whole. But when you say that, you could always have those movies off to the side and say, oh, he's not talking about us, though. He's talking about them.
Well, that's the funny part. Like, I think some of the best directors of all time. I listen to this podcast. I'm not gonna name it by hand, or name it by name, but they talk about how Stanley Kubrick was like huge into the teardown of like society and fucking what was that, of the film industry. That's why all of his movies are so like downtrodden and mean spirited, because it's just like a straight fucking shot at Hollywood. I'm like, the biggest directors have like the biggest dicks. It's pretty funny to listen to.
Well, Stanley Kubrick would call out. He'd call out a specific fucking movie. He'd call names.
I know, right?
He was just like, fuck it. I mean, he didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
I mean, and once again, he's one of those ones. He made some like some of the what people would consider some of the best films in history. He's one of the greatest filmmakers in history, according to by a bunch of people. So I guess you earned that right. I guess you earned the right to be a bit of a dick. I mean, James Cameron's shown that he could be a dick. But anyway, I guess let us know in the comments below what you guys think. Do you think James Cameron's comments are going to age poorly, or do you think Avatar: Way of Water is going to come out and just be his magnum opus of characterizations and acting? I'm sure it'll be a great, interesting, or like a really, or I hope it's going to be a really fun, entertaining, interesting sci-fi flick. But like I said, Jimmy, I love you, man. I love your films. But even the ones I love, I can sometimes cringe a little bit. Edward Furlong and Terminator 2, I love Terminator 2, but man, sometimes that kid would talk and I was like, oh. I was just stop, make it stop. You know, there was some cringe dialogue there, okay, and that goes for Avatar
Yep.
too. But all right, yeah, let us know in the comments below what you guys think of James Cameron's comments.